Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Shri Srimad Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shata Shri Srimad Divine Grace, Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrndavana Dham Ki Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai, New Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, entitled Creative Impetus, Chapter 24. Okay. Text number 23. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yat tad bhagavatana di gatanyo payena yachna chalana paritaswa sharirāvasheshita lokatraya varuna pashaishcha samprattimukto giradharam chapavidha iti hovacha. Can you pass the mic to Mogalila, Prabhu? And can you give him a book or something, or a device?
Do you want me to read the translation or the?
Yeah, the translation.
Okay. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead could see no other means of taking everything away from Bali Maharaj, he adopted the trick of begging from him and took away all the three worlds. Thus only his body was left, but the Lord was still not satisfied. He arrested Bali Maharaj, bound him with the ropes of Varuna, and threw him in a cave in a mountain. Nevertheless, although all his property was taken and he was thrown into a cave, Bali Maharaj was such a great devotee that he spoke as follows. Next verse. Alas, how pitiable it is for Indra, the king of heaven, that although he is very learned and powerful, and although he chose Brihaspati as his prime minister to instruct him, he is completely ignorant concerning spiritual advancement. Brihaspati is also unintelligent because he did not properly instruct his disciple Indra. Lord Vamanadev was standing at Lord Indra's door, but King Indra, instead of begging him for an opportunity to render transcendental loving service, engaged him in asking me for alms to gain the three worlds for his sense gratification. Sovereignty over the three worlds is very insignificant because whatever material opulence one may possess lasts only for an age of Manu, which is but a tiny fraction of endless time. Purport? Bali Maharaj was so powerful that he fought with Indra and took possession of the three worlds. Indra was certainly very advanced in knowledge, but instead of asking Vamanadev for engagement in his service, he used the Lord to beg for material possessions that would be finished at the end of one age of Manu. An age of Manu, which is the duration of Manu's life, is calculated to last 72 yugas. One yuga consists of 4.3 million years, and therefore the duration of Manu's life is 309,600,000 years. The demigods possess their material opulence only until the end of the life of Manu. Time is insurmountable. The time one is allotted, even if it be millions of years, is quickly gone. The demigods own their material possessions only within the limits of time. Therefore, Bali Maharaj lamented that although Indra was very learned, he did not know how to use his intelligence properly. But instead of asking Vamanadev to allow him to engage in his service, Indra used him to beg Bali Maharaj for wealth. Although Indra was learned and his prime minister Brihaspati was also learned, neither of them begged to be able to render loving service to Lord Vamanadev. Therefore, Bali Maharaj lamented for Indra.
Again, Timidandasya Gananjana Shalakya Chakshulan Militam Yana Tasmai Shigravina Maha Mukam Karitavachalam Pangam Langa Tegadim Yakipatamaham Vande Shigurunde Taranam Vancha Kapadribishta Kibasindbe Vicha Patitanam Pavanebyo Vaishnavebyo Namanamaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I remember years ago I was at the San Francisco. Yes, I was at the San Francisco Rath Yatra, and somehow or other, I mean, it was around this. It was obviously around this time of year, and they were also celebrating Julan Yatra in the Berkeley Temple. So they have quite an interesting setup in the Berkeley Temple. They have these hooks on the ceiling, and then they have I don't know, some type of chain coming down, and they have this big wooden platform, and then they put their Radha Krishna deities there, and then devotees swing them. So it's like this huge thing, right? Quite a setup. So yeah, that was very nice swinging. I've been there another time also for Julan Yatra. I remember that devotee who we saw up there in Los Angeles yesterday. Was his name Bahulashva? Yeah, he's been there for many years in San Francisco, in the Berkeley area. So I remember I arrived there, then he immediately grabbed me and said, "Oh, help, help, help. You know, we're getting the DDs, we're bringing them out and putting them on." So that was nice. But the first time I went there around this time, and Julian Yatra was happening, there was one sannyasi giving a class, and then actually it was Amiya Vilas Swami was giving the class, and then Bhakti Avatar Prabhu was in the audience, and other devotees. And Bhakti Avatar asked the question about, can you give us some more like intimate details about Julian Yatra? And apparently Maharaj, I would say he didn't like the question, but for whatever reason he didn't want to get into the intimate details of that for whatever reason. But this Julian Yatra, it is Radha Krishna, they're swinging. And it's obviously anything between Radha and Krishna is conjugal by nature. I mean, that is their relationship. And objectively speaking, of course, all the rasas, right? It's not that devotees in different rasas or relationships with Krishna are feeling unsatisfied. But objectively speaking, the conjugal rasa, that rasa one could have with Krishna, is said to be the topmost relationship one could have. And again, it's not that, oh, if one's in a different relationship with Krishna, then they're thinking, let me have a conjugal relationship. They're satisfied, but objectively speaking, it's the highest. And Rupa Goswami, he wrote the whole Bhakti Rasamrita, which is Sindhu, which is a wonderful book. Prabhupada translated as Nectar Devotion. And it's amazing if devotees, when devotees they read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it's a good thing to do actually. Read the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Nectar Devotion side by side. And we'll see how Srila Prabhupada, Bhanu Swami, he translated that Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but read side by side and we'll see how Srila Prabhupada practically translated the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu text by text. It says summary study, but it's practically text by text, like all the points are there. Similar with the Krishna book, the 10th canto. But Srila Prabhupada Rupa Goswami emphasized certain things that Prabhupada didn't bring up in his Nectar and Devotion, more so than Prabhupada's Nectar Devotion. But yeah, it's really amazing work, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And Srila Prabhupada, the subtitle was The Complete Science of Bhakti Yoga. So the conjugal rasa, Srila Rupa Goswami, he dedicated a whole nother book to this particular relationship one could have with Krishna, and that is Ujjvala Nilamani. And Ujjvala Nilamani, it gets into all the different details of the different types of gopis and subgroups and all these different things, Krishna and the gopis. And it is not intimate. It is not intimate conjugal book such as Govinda Lilamrita, which Govinda Lilamrita, apparently Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was thinking about printing it. And then he asked Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, okay, let me get back to you. I mean, I don't know if he said that exactly, but he said, I'll answer your question, just give me some time. So then, eventually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur went back to him and he said, can I print it? And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, yes, you could print one for yourself. So Govinda Lilamrita, because the nature of it, the conjugal rasa, it's very esoteric book that is not easily understandable for somebody who hasn't been thoroughly purified in the fire of devotional service. So he said, don't print it. Just print one for yourself. Now, of course, nowadays, anyone, any fool and rascal, or any not fool or rascal, any devotee, or anyone, just means anyone on the spectrum between, right, unpurified to purified. They could go to Vrindavan, right? Or they think they're going. Anyways, they could go to Vrindavan. It's not so easy to go to Vrindavan either. Like Prabhupada said, you can't just buy a ticket, right? You could go to Vrindavan and you could, right, drive to LAX, hop on a plane, miserable plane for 24 hours. We're like the farthest away from India as it gets. It's tough, right, leaving the West Coast. But fly all the way to India, take a taxi from Delhi to Vrindavan, then take a rickshaw, right? Take me to Loy Bazaar, right? Where they sell the types of different things, and then go down to Ras Bihari Lal, walk in there, walk upstairs, search the book section. There it is, Govinda Lilamrita. I got it, and take it home and read it. Or even easier, we could look it up right now on our phones and just press a button and download it. We got the PDF right there, right? So yeah, it may be easy to get, but it's not easy to understand. And therefore, so yeah, the Ujjvala Nilamani, it is about the conjugal rasa. It's a whole book dedicated on it, because the Nectar of Devotion describes the different relationships one could have with Krishna. And Rupa Goswami, his conviction and realization is that conjugal rasa is so important that let's dedicate a whole book to it. And it's less, but of course there is some intimate details there. So when we talk about Radha, Krishna, and their pastimes, yes, they're conjugal by nature, because that's their relationship. It's a conjugal relationship. So these particular pastimes where Radha and Krishna are on a swing, it is a very beautiful pastime. And we'll ask Dravida Prabhu for a little meditation, a little poetry meditation. About the swing. Yeah, swinging pastime, Radha and Krishna.
Yes, where blooming flowers spread their sweet perfumes, where clear Yamuna flows and songbirds sing, where all the land a lovely light illumes, Shri Radha and Shri Krishna gently swing. This idol of their pastimes is idol of their love in Braja's bowers, forever charms their dearest devotees, whose hearts Shri Krishna's sweetness overpowers, obscuring his prodigious potencies. Now, Shtoreshwar, this is for you. Listen up. Whatever in this world we know as love is just a shadow of the love they feel. The wise aspire to hear the secrets of devotion's path and taste that love ideal. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yeah, so Lord Chaitanya, he was quite conservative in discussing publicly these things, and actually he wouldn't. And similarly with Srila Prabhupada, he was very conservative in describing these different things in public, and actually he wouldn't. There was a time where some persons was asking Prabhupada, oh, tell us about Radha and Krishna, tell us about Rasa Leela. We want some Rasa Leela Katha, some recitation, right? And then Prabhupada said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then they kept on pushing. Some people are really pushy, so those were those type of people that were pushing him. And eventually Prabhupada said, you may be advanced enough, but I'm not. So I'm not going to describe this to you. So Lord Chaitanya was conservative, Prabhupada was conservative, but although that's there, it's in the books. It's in the books. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Goswami literature. And because it's in the books, it's part of our tradition. And with the permission of one's spiritual master and other instructing devotees, then we could read such things and, meditate on such things in the proper way. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it says that actually by meditating on the Rasa Leela, if it's heard from a proper authority, it means a dhira, sober person, then it says it purifies the heart of all types of, it says mundane lust. So it is in our tradition, it is in our books, but just as Lord Chaitanya, just as Srila Prabhupada didn't discuss publicly, devotees may converse amongst each other privately and may read and hear these different topics in due course of time under the instruction of the spiritual master. Because if things aren't under the instruction of the spiritual master, then what's the use? It's like, hey, well, I had a bright idea. Let's go for it. But that's not how Krishna consciousness should. That's not how one Krishna consciousness should operate. They should operate that, okay, I have an idea. Let's see if it's bright. And then they go to the guru, and the guru says, that's not bright. And you say, okay, I accept. That's what it means to have a guru. Not that, I go to a guru, or I have a bright idea and let me do it. That's not very bright. But if you say, I think I have a bright idea, let me go to the guru, and the guru says, yeah, that's a bright idea, go for it. So it's a simple thing, but it has to be practiced. Because, do you think you could grab the clock, please? Go over down. And the agua, please. Because, like for example, living in Vrindavan, we're not against that. There are many devotees presently who live in Vrindavan, in Mayapur, for example. So we're not against that. That's not against our tradition. Actually, Rupa Goswami says, Mathura Vas, to live in a holy place. But that has to be done under the instruction of one spiritual master. If they think it's good, we go to Vrindavan, then we may go. But also Vrindavan and Mayapur, it's not a place for sense gratification. It's a place for austerity. It's actually a very serious place. And just because one may want to live there for whatever reasons, there has to be good reasons, because it's actually a place of tapasya, austerity. And actually this tapasya should be practiced wherever one lives. Or else they actually won't be living in Vrindavan or Mayapur. They'll just be living in their own material consciousness, with their own material desires. which is really bad actually, especially if you're trying to live in Vrindavan or Mayapur. It's actually really bad to live with material desires, and what to speak of act on them in the holy Dham. Better they don't. So in other words, just to live in the Dham, there actually has to be some adhikar, some qualification. So because sometimes people think, okay, well, I'll just go to Vrindavan, and then I'll become a pure devotee. And then if Krishna wants, I'll come back and I'll spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, or all over wherever. And they say, well, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he did his vrat, right, chanting 10 years, right, so many holy names. All right, but who could do that? I haven't heard of many others doing that. From aside from him, Bhaktivinoda Thakur did it also. But who else? I mean, we always talk about how he did that, but do we ever talk about how anyone else did that? Or we talk about how Srila Prabhupada was living a very austere life for Vrindavan. But I don't... Prabhupada wasn't living a comfortable life in Vrindavan. I mean, now we live in Vrindavan with our air conditioners and our, NVT prasadam and all this, but Prabhupada was living a very simple life in Vrindavan. And I don't know if, many devotees doing that either. And how Prabhupada was working hard. He wasn't just sleeping in Vrindavan, he was working very hard. Chanting so much and distributing and writing his books. So if one wants to... First of all, so in other words, there has to be a particular qualification to do that. And therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would criticize this a lot. He said, oh, you're doing your nirjana bhajan. What is this nirjana bhajan? You have your materially contaminated mind, and you're just thinking about sense gratification. Money and women, or whatever, vice versa, whatever, sense gratification, different forms of sense gratification. So that's the difficulty, that, people say, okay, I'll just chant, but then they're just thinking about mundane things, and they don't really have a taste for the holy name, and then they just end up smoking ganja or something, right? You see them smoking ganja, Yeah, why do it in Vrindavana? You can just do it here, right? It's probably better to do it here. I mean, of course, they're both bad, but... Yeah, I mean, it's not that ganja's not available, or whatever. I don't know what types of forms they have there, but I never got into it. But, it's there in Mayapur, it's there on... I actually were on a parikrama one time, and someone said, hey, look at that, that's some ganja plant growing on the side of the road, So, yeah, Vijay Prabhu said there's a lot of it. So in other words, it's not so easy. One can't just buy a ticket, or one cannot just, get a, like a kutir or whatever, this and that. And it's not so easy. I mean, people have desires, material desires. Now, of course, we should try to expunge ourselves from the material desires. It's not a talk that's saying, oh, we have material desires, we shouldn't do anything about it, but we should get rid of them. But much of these ideas, of whatever, like, okay, I'll go to Vrindavan, I'll be a pure devotee if I come back and then I'll preach. But much of these ideas, at least in some cases, can just be stemming from, boredom, frustration. For example, we're dealing with people and management and this and that, and let me just go, right? But again, one may go, but then there's still the minds there. So it's not so easy. So what should one do? A person should get a program that they should follow a program, first of all. They should get a program designed by the spiritual master, by the devotees, and get that program and follow it. And they will get purified. It's not that one will not get purified living in the West. One can get purified. Like Prabhupada said, the West is good for two things: preaching and sense gratification. So if one's in the West, one should get into the preaching mode, because Prabhupada says it's good for two things: preaching and sense gratification. So, and obviously as devotees, we want to get into the sense gratification realm, we want to get into the preaching mode. So, and that will be purifying if it's done in a proper way. If it's done in a mood of austerity, a mood of renunciation, a mood of Krishna consciousness, and also if one's very serious about their spiritual practices, right, in the morning, in the evening, one can get purified. It's not that, and if we were to say that you couldn't get purified, then and it's just neophyte business to live in the cities and preach and have all the temples here, then why did Prabhupada set it up at all? He just wanted the neophytes, and I mean, if we were to say, well, when they could become advanced, then they could close all the temples and move to India. All right, well, then why don't we just close all the temples now, and then you could force everybody to India? Then we could say by nature they'll just become forced to be advanced. Anyways, so Srila Prabhupada, he wanted the temples to be in the cities, and actually the best preachers are those who are advanced. So it's not that Prabhupada wanted a bunch of people in the cities and the temples, a bunch of neophytes in the cities and the temples. Why would Prabhupada want that? Prabhupada's the most merciful acharya, right? Why would he want, how does it make any sense that Prabhupada wants the temple flooded, or excuse me, the world flooded with temples, and in all the temples Prabhupada wants the most neophyte devotees to live in them and to spread Krishna consciousness in India, in America and throughout the world. Neophytes cannot spread Krishna consciousness. They're not interested in it. They're not interested in preaching. So the best preachers are those who are advanced in Krishna consciousness. So it makes sense that Prabhupada wants all the temples, cities throughout the world, he wants advanced devotees to be there, because they could actually help people. And therefore, right, the best preacher, or the best, Goshnanandi, right? Goshnanandi, right? Something like that. Is the Bhajananandi who preaches. That's the best. Is it? No. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. The best preacher is the relisher of Krishna consciousness who preaches. So in other words, one who's experiencing the bliss of Krishna. That's why Prabhupada was the best. Traveling around, and he was experiencing love of God, and therefore people were inspired. So, and Srila Prabhupada would want that in his temples, because neophytes mean they destroy religion, actually. They destroy the name of Krishna in different ways. Prabhupada in one purport, he said they mutilate Krishna. Right? Or it actually says it's a scar on the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, Madhyamadikaris, Uttamadikaris, Prabhupada wanted advanced personalities in the temple. Not that we close it up and send everybody off to Vrndavana. But there's they say spiritual life is just like a razor. I mean, it's sharp. You could cut, shave very nicely or cut, right? So whether we're in Vrindavan or Mayapur, it's like a razor's edge. And also whether we're in the West, it's like a razor's edge. In other words, it's both has to be scientifically done, very precisely. Just like we were discussing the other day, we're trying to perform heart surgery on someone, right? Metaphysically, right? So it has to be very precise, cutting, or else you kill the patient. So similarly, the process to be followed very precisely, or else there's problems. And people become fearful of this. I mean, recently I asked somebody, would you like to come stay in the temple and the next day attend Rath Yatra? And I saw fear in his eyes. He was just so scared of commitment. I mean, how much of a commitment is it? We're talking about one night. He's talking about it one night and going up to the Rath Yatra. I mean, it's not that big of a commitment. But for him, there was literally fear in his eyes. Although he's chanting Hare Krishna, and although he's a devotee, actually. He's just got some material leanings, but he's a devotee. But he's scared. Who knows what he's scared of? I don't know. He's scared he's going to, I don't know. Yeah, get attracted, move in the temple. But he's scared of surrender. He's scared of commitment, even if it's small. I mean, he's not scared of committing himself to sense gratification. I know that. He's a young man, and I'm not saying his name, obviously, but he's a young man, and he's got severe problems with chasing women. He's not scared of committing himself to that, but Krishna consciousness, very scared. So this is the problem that if we leave our mind and senses to just roam, they will roam the universe and they'll just drag us to destruction. And we'll be chasing after so many dumb things, actually, just really foolish. But the problem is that people don't feel that this is a problem, and they don't mind being committed to such a dumb thing. That's the problem. So we have to convince ourselves over and over and over, and try to convince others that, hey, just try to be committed to Krishna consciousness just a little bit. And the fact is, without commitment to Krishna consciousness, without commitment in general, there's no question of happiness. That's what a lot of these modern people, they don't understand. They think, oh, just live a life of uncommitment, right? Non-committal life, and I'm going to be happy. Well, no, you're going to be depressed. So if we could just commit ourselves very precisely to the particular process of Krishna consciousness under the instruction of the spiritual master, living in Mathura, or if we can't live that, then in our mind, right, thinking, then we could be successful, and then there could be some chance of understanding Krishna consciousness in deeper levels. Okay, does anybody... I didn't speak on the verse, by the way, or the purport, so... yeah. So I think Tuesday, Dharma said to Prabhu could do it because, yeah, I didn't speak on it. Because I just went from Julan Yatra to pastimes.
Rasalila.
Yeah, Rasalila.
Vrndavana.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding, because we know that Srila Prabhupada was so eager and determined to establish major temples and ashrams in Vrindavan and Mayapur and in Bombay, is that he, especially the ones in Mayapur and Vrindavan, he wanted his devotees to visit there
Yeah.
And in fact, it was the Mayapur Vrindavan festival, the Gopanim festival. That's what it was. And to be enlivened and to be purified and fired up, and then go back and preach in their home state.
Yeah.
Until the time came when they couldn't do that anymore and they needed to retire, and there would be places to go there and stay there permanently.
Yeah.
Which is what he did.
Yeah.
He stayed in Vrindavan and he wrote his books, then he came out and preached, but he never actually just settled down in Vrindavan as long as he was traveling. Although his devotees were saying, well, you should stay. But finally he went there, and left this mortal realm.
Yeah.
So that's the model. Not that I'll go to Vrindavan, settle in, when I'm a young man or young woman and become advanced and then go out and preach. That was never Prabhupada's program.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even when Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, he was in a preaching mood. Of course, he was also chanting, but he was also writing his books there. He was preparing, writing his books to go to India. To go to America. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he was chanting everything, and I believe he had the Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Mat already, and he's doing a little management also. I don't know how he was doing that also. But. Yeah. Yeah.
Prabhu, can you use the microphone?
Chanting that 300,000 names a day, which comes out to 9 years, I think, of constant chanting, of daily chanting. And also managing, and also people would come and see him and he would preach, and at the same time he's chanting. It's inconceivable how he's doing it.
Yeah, then after that he went to Calcutta, and he really, Hare Krishna explosion, and he met Srila Prabhupada, and we have that Alta Dunga property now, which the devotees were trying for years to get. They finally got it there in Calcutta, and they really made it nice, beautiful, and on the rooftop they made murtis of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Prabhupada as a young man, and very beautiful. So, but you also judge an activity by its fruit, right? So even if someone wanted to say, okay, you want to go and get absorbed in chanting this and that, and then come back and preach, we might even say, okay, go do it then. I'll see you in 10 years. But after 10 years, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he displayed in his life, let's see the results. So anyways, as Dravida Prabhu was saying, Prabhupada wanted us to go there and recharge our spiritual batteries, and then come back and try to help people. Yes.
Hare Krishna, thank you for your class. A devotee told me once that, this is really loud, a devotee told me once that she was living in Mayapur, and she said that everything is times 1,000. Had you heard that? Yeah, she said that any offense you make is multiplied by 1,000, and anything you do well is multiplied by 1,000, and every day is like 3 years, because every day is like 1,000 days. And I said, oh, how do you deal with that? That sounds really intense. And she said, yeah, that's why I don't live in Vrindavan, because it's even more. Is that, you're nodding your head like that's a thing, because I'd never heard anyone say that before, but it sounds like that's a real thing.
Yeah, well, they say that living in Vrindavan, it's more, of course, Krishna is Karuna Sindhu, an ocean of mercy. Srimati Radharani is also. So they're merciful, but the idea is that in Vrindavan the offenses are more taken into consideration, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, they don't take offenses into consideration. So therefore some devotees say, okay, well, let us move to Mayapur instead of Vrindavan. So that's there. But still, it's not also so easy to live in Mayapur. Means, like one devotee was telling me how this person wanted to move to Mayapur. So they moved there. But, you know, first of all, it was a big hassle to get there, like many obstacles. And then when they got there, somehow or other they were dissatisfied about dissatisfied about that, and, you know, moving to this place, moving to that place, and eventually gone. They couldn't stay there somehow. So there has to be a particular mood. So yeah, the fences aren't taken into consideration, but that doesn't mean we should still be careful. Not like, oh well, you know, my mother doesn't take any offenses to what I do. You know, she loves me unconditionally, so that means I'm just going to be complete nonsense and give her a hard time. That's not very nice. I mean, the mother will love us actually unconditionally. Good mother will, even if we're a complete monster and everybody else hates us. But that doesn't mean we should, you know, be mean to her. So similarly with, I mean, it's a crude example, but similarly with Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, oh, they don't take any offenses, so I could just be a rascal, and, you know, they'll still love me, right? I could do whatever I want in the Dham, but that's not a high level of Krishna consciousness, and that's actually improper. But yeah, there's an idea like that. Yes.
Thank you for the nice class. One little distinction I had heard on the last points you were discussing. Srila Prabhupada mentioned that Vrindavan was more for renunciation and Mayapur was okay for grihastha life. Of course, careful, grihastha life. And just a little, I was remembering when you were talking about the, chillum smoking babas that you see along the Prikram path. There's that funny little pastime in Vrindavan days by Hayagriva, and early ISKCON devotees being with Prabhupada in Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was explaining about how the hogs, like people that perform sinful activities in Vrindavan, they get the mercy of being born as a dog or a hog, and so much association with the dust, and they kind of get those reactions out in that body of an animal constantly in the dust of the Dham. And then Hayagriva said, what about these, hashish or marijuana, babas you see along the way? And Prabhupada said, oh, they'll take birth in San Francisco and smoke ganja on Hippie Hill, It was pretty hilarious. It's in Vrindavan days.
That's funny. Thank you.
Thank you, Balarama Prabhu. We went to LA yesterday for a nice festival. Everyone's a little tired. Did a great job. Way to, bring a robust class to us. I actually had a question for Vijay about the festival yesterday, but I had a question about the purport, and then you just made a good point that brought up kind of like a metaphor I heard about what we're talking about. Remember Vrndavana Dasa gave a nice class a couple weeks ago? He was talking about the difference of Mayapur and Vrindavan and how sins are magnified, and we need to approach Vrindavan through the realm of Mayapur because it's so merciful. I'm thinking, so like let's say someone is like really materially motivated, and they, like that person you're talking about, they can't even spend a night in the temple, right? I remember when I was first learning you could spend the night in the temple, I was like, wow, they'll accept me? I have this opportunity? Really? Like if someone like me can sleep on the floor here? Like wonderful. As opposed to, oh, I couldn't do that, I'm not. So so if someone has that mood, they say, okay, I have all these material desires, I'm trying my hardest in Chicago or El Paso or wherever. I need Mayapur. I need Vrindavan, right? I can't go to Skid Row with these desires, or I'm going to destroy myself. So what if someone says...
What about Skid Row?
Well, but that would magnify those bad desires to the point where they would lose themselves. So I remember I was watching some show and someone had some illness, and they said, you can take these intense antibiotics 3 times a day for a month, or we can give you 1 shot and it's cured. And they were like, well, I'm going to take the shot, right? So what if someone's like, I'm that fallen. I need to go to a holy place. I don't care if I make offenses. That's where the mercy's at. I need it.
Well,
what about that attitude?
I mean, like Prabhupada was asked about some devotees wanting to go to Radhakund, which our acharyas have lived in Radhakund, some of them. but they were also acharyas. And they were very austere, like Raghunath Das Goswami, offering so many obeisances every day, and 1,008 to the devotees, something like that. 2,000 to the devotees, 1,000 to Krishna. Actually, more to the devotees than Krishna. And walking around Govardhan so many times, very austere life. And Prabhupada said, this is what it means to live at Radhakund. And he said, not that a person lives there and he has 12, what did he say? Devi Dasis. Means the guy is just living there and, licentious, means with other women. And Prabhupada would say that first follow the first things first. What about the first instruction of Rupa Goswami, inductive instruction? Because the last instruction says to go to Radhakund. But the first instruction says, Vacho vegam manasa kroda vegam jiva vegam adarapasta vegam etan vegam yovishaheta dira. So become a dira. Sarvam epimam pritavim shashishat. That one who could control their senses. So if one goes to the Dham with uncontrolled senses, and people have to be honest with themselves. You say, I'm qualified to go. Okay, well, take a tally of your life up until the present. Are you able to control the senses? That's the first step. And then there's some question of going to higher stages. Like Prabhupada was talking to that priest about eating of meat. And then the priest was saying, let's go to a higher topic. And Prabhupada said, no, we're sticking to this topic because if you don't understand this, we can't go to a higher topic. So similarly, we have to control our senses. So people may go there, but their senses are going to drag them there also. I mean, drag them around there also. And they probably they're going to create disturbances, whatever. People, married people, cheating on people. I mean, cheating on their wife, cheating on their husband in the Dham. I mean, it's like really disgusting, but in the Dham, I mean, it's disgusting outside of the Dham too, but this is like basic moral principles that they're breaking. So, don't live there. So anyways, yeah. So if you're really fallen, then if you feel yourself really fallen, then you should go and bow down before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Nityananda Prabhu, and beg for their mercy. Bow down to the devotees, beg for their mercy. Follow their instructions. But the best thing may not be to go to Vrindavan at that time. So
beg for the mercy to be able to go to Vrindavan.
And you may not go physically or whatever and live there, but like Rupa Goswami, he does give two options. He doesn't give just one. He doesn't say go to Vrindavan and live there. He says that, but he gives a second option. He said if you cannot do that for whatever reasons, then you should live there in your mind. You should practice Krishna consciousness and live in Vrindavan. Means think about Krishna, be Krishna conscious. So like Prabhupada would said, he was in New York and he said, you may look like I'm here in New York, but I'm actually in Vrindavan, and I'm thinking of Vrindavan. So, like, or Advaita Acharya told who? Who's it? On the boat, right? Wherever you are, my Lord, this is Vrindavan. So it's similar. I think Seoul has. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I was going to ask yesterday at the festival. There were some nice topics going around. We were talking about. Somebody asked this question. It was Ananda Kirtan. No, not. Yeah. You just asked. There's this book called Simple for the Simple. And he
I know that book.
Yeah. And it says that towards the end of this Mataji's life, she had a tumor. And then she was able to see her, what is it, like, her
spiritual form?
Yeah, her spiritual form. And he was asking, so like, if I don't attain bhav in this life, if I do everything I can to attain perfection and everything, and take another birth, and I don't see my spiritual form. But the thing we were just talking about going to Vrindavan, and like just spending so much time there trying to make my spiritual life perfect so I could see the spiritual form. He's saying, is it really necessary to go there, to go to Vrindavan, to do such things?
Who was asking that?
Another Kirtan Prabhu.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, because Krishna conscious is not, it's not restricted. Like, I have to go to a particular place, or
Yeah,
it's not restricted at all. Krishna is everywhere. So Prabhupada says it's all pervasive. Vrindavan's all pervasive. Of course, there's a special potency there. But yeah, it's not necessary to do that. Many devotees at the last stages of their life, they go, as Srila Prabhupada did. So that for sure is absolutely recommended. At the last stage of life, one should go. But Krishna, right? Ahoitikiya pratiyata. There's no obstacle really. I'm living in San Diego, so therefore I can't become God realized. What type of process is that?
Yeah.
It's not a. Yes.
Yeah, Prabhupada said that the temple is not like this temple. It's not in San Diego. It's a spiritual world.
Yeah.
So this is Vrindavan. Here, the temples. Radha and Krishna, Gauranitai, Jagannath, Subhadra.
Yeah.
And one more. It was in the beginning of your class. We ended up talking about the swing and the rasa dance and this and that. And that.
You want to listen to? Do you want to listen to the rest of Lila?
No.
No, why not? Anyways, Triveda Prabhu has actually nice recording.
Okay.
Reading of the 10th canto. Yeah. So.
And then.
I felt purified after hearing it, actually.
The sannyasi, I can't really pronounce his name, but I know Mogalila can. Anyways, he was saying
okay, anyways, yeah.
You know.
He was saying what?
He was saying to attain Krishna's mercy is not trying to completely attract Krishna. It's attracting Srimati Radharani. It's like approaching him to that because evidently you're trying to gain the attention of the person he loves the most. You're not distracting him from what he actually enduring.
Yeah.
To do. So that was really nice because I was like, oh, it hit me. I was like, okay. Because then you said it before, we're Gaudiya Mats, or we're just servants of Srimati Radharani.
Yeah.
And I tend to forget that because at first we come in thinking like, oh, okay, I just want pure love of Krishna and I just want prema, but you realize that it's actually you want to get pure love for Radharani, right?
Radha Govinda, yeah. Radha Govinda Prema, right? Sada in the bus, we always swim. Love Shri Radha and Krishna. Yeah. Well, Chaitanya Radharani, or Krishna's coming in the mood of Radharani, is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's spreading Krishna consciousness. And Radharani is merciful. Merciful is not a what do you call inactive thing. It's active. It's like Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness is not inaction; it's action. So, she being the most merciful, what does she want? She wants people to come. She wants people to come to Krishna. So, if we want Radharani's mercy, then we can try to bring people to Krishna. That's the idea. Mercy. Mercy doesn't mean I'm an ocean of mercy, and I'm not showing it at all, right? I just don't. It means it's active. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's coming, Nityananda Prabhu's coming, the Acharyas are coming. They're all representatives of Srimati Radharani, right? And they're trying to bring people to Krishna consciousness. So, yeah. All right. Well, if anyone wants to go, they could go, but I think there's probably, I think I neglected Vijay's Zoom question the last 2 times. So I think you have a question, Vijay?
Oh my God, yes I do. Balaram Prabhu Dandavat Pranams. My question is, if I may, and this is related to, because you said you didn't comment on the translation and the purport for today's verse.
Yeah.
May I?
Yeah.
Yes. Some people do not surrender to Krishna because of being afraid that Krishna could make them destitute and impoverished. Based on this, my question is there any Shastric reference that shows that although Krishna may turn me into a destitute, still I will never become a loser?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, better to be poor with Krishna than rich with Maya. Because being rich with Maya and illusion, it's just miserable. It's miserable. Means there's no. A godless life is a miserable life. So these people, they're very rich, but they're just rich, godless people. I mean, how happy can you be? You cannot be happy. Whereas, see some devotees, they may be poor, right, from all material standards, but they're very happy. Very happy. I mean, I remember I was in Mayapur and I went to this, what was it? It was like, I'm forgetting some village. It's part of the Parikrama. Anyway, so I talked to this devotee from Croatia, and he knew somebody who lived in the village there. In I don't know, some type of hut, cow dung and straw and this and that and mud, clay and some type of simple structure. He lived there with his wife and his children. And he was a devotee. Go to Vaisnava, and he would go to Mayapur and Belpakor, I think, yeah. That's where I went. And then they invited us for lunch. This was years ago, but they invited us for lunch, and the devotee just fed us so much. It was just like too much. And then at one particular point he said, I thought I was going to get sick, but I didn't get sick, but he fed us so much. And then at the end he said, Prabhu, now we're going to bring out the fruit, And he had like a fruit salad, like a cut up, all these different fruits, like we had, at the Rath Yatra bus going up. Something like that. Good idea, Tyler. That Mogalila and Mukunda trying and Prabhu cutting it up. But so at one point I said, I'm really sorry, but I can't finish this fruit. He said, okay, no problem. But anyways, they were so happy actually. That was my perception. Very happy people. But from a material standpoint, you bring somebody from Beverly Hills there, hey, you're going to live here in this village, in this simple structure. They're like, that's like hell for them, actually, But which one's hell? So to be rich and godless is miserable. But to be poor or, not have much wealth, and to have the wealth of Krishna, that is actually real wealth. So, and also you have what's this devotee, and what is his name? Sridhar, yeah, Kolavecha Sridhar. He was very poor, but he was so happy because they had Krishna. So that's the idea. I hope that satisfies.
Yes. As to be expected, very helpful, wonderful answer to my question. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can I ask a quick question?
Okay.
Nice class. Thank you so much. My question is, you just mentioned that in Vrndavana, some Babaji, some people, they do ganja and drinking and all that.
Yeah.
So in that regards, then also people say Vrajvasi, they can do that. They are different than us, and Vrajvasis are allowed. And so sometimes I get confused that in that term relation, why people say Vrajvasis, because they are Vrajvasi and they can do such a thing, and we should still think them they are higher, or I don't know, because they are Vrajvasi. I don't. If you can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Prabhupada, I mean, there's different statements. You know, there's statements on both sides, but I mean, Prabhupada would say that Vrindavan's full of, he also said one time that Vrindavan's full of Mayavadis. So, but then there's also the injunction, okay, there's people who live there, Vrajvasis, and we should be very respectful, right? So, yeah, we should be respectful to the residents of Vrindavan. We shouldn't be disrespectful. But as a matter of teaching, we may, bring certain things up like this, and so as a matter of teaching, we may bring many things up like this. Does anybody have any thoughts in relation to Danvari's question?
Well, it's not that you could, if you're living in Vrindavan, you could, you're a Brajabasi, you can do all sinful activities. I don't think Krishna would approve of that. No, Prabhupada said that people who commit sinful activities in Vrindavan in their next life, they become hogs, monkeys. Yeah, you can't. It's not that you're aloof from reaction if you're a Brajabasi in Vrindavan. No, they have to. Yeah. They have to also follow, of course.
Yeah, and there's also thieves there. I mean, so many, different. All right, I think Mukunda and Prabhu it'll be our last.
Well, at least what comes to my mind is that at least the Vrajavasis on at least some, they're all devotees of Krishna, certainly on at least some level.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of the example Prabhupada gave of. Well, first, I guess Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone is engaged in devotional service or trying to become a devotee or they're trying to advance devotional service, that's their determination. But then they engage in abominable activity, then we should still see them as saintly, and we shouldn't criticize them. That's our own, those offenses hurt our own spiritual life or keep us from advancing. And I was thinking of Prabhupada give the example of Brahmananda. And said, I think at the time Brahmananda was like the temple president at that temple, and he said, even if you see Brahmananda walking down the street smoking a cigarette, you shouldn't criticize him, something like that. Of course, he wasn't smoking, Brahmananda, but that was Prabhupada's example. And Brahmananda, so that even the temple president here, the temple president, has a slip up, is they're smoking a cigarette. It doesn't mean that he's, you can criticize him and not, harm your own spiritual life. Yeah. So I was thinking in a similar way that if Brahmananda, because he's a devotee, he shouldn't engage in sinful activity. He shouldn't smoke cigarettes, Brahmananda, the temple president or whatever, any devotee who's initiated. But at the same time, we shouldn't criticize that person. And so I think as far as I saw it with like the Vrajavasis, not that, it's not, I guess as far as I downloaded it, it wasn't that the Vrajavasis, they can go back to Godhead, they can leave their body high out of their mind or something, and or they can smoke ganja, and that's equally as good or this or that. I thought the emphasis was that we shouldn't criticize the Vrajavasis for activities they're performing. Now, I could be wrong about that. Maybe that there actually it is a more absolute statement. I'm just wrong, so I don't want to give a wrong impression. But that's at least what came to my mind, is that they're all devotees on some level. And just as we shouldn't criticize Brahmananda smoking cigarette, we shouldn't criticize any of the Vrajavasis even for the things that they do. That
I think Vaikuntha is.
I was under the impression anyway, and I'm more than welcome to be corrected, that like we are kind of coming to Krishna consciousness from being trained as sadhakas, and the Vrajavasis are kind of like, they're sort of born into Krishna consciousness, and they're, doing their occupational things, they're doing their families, they're having their quarrels about land and this and that. You know, like Sanatana Goswami was kind of like the unofficial mayor of Vrindavan. It wasn't that people weren't, you know, but then he would come and like they had that respect, that love for Krishna, that respect for the sadhus. They don't look exactly like us. Like we're coming from like the lower modes completely, and then we're getting trained as devotees. So I think there's also, just so like we're not confused, you know, they're kind of like in a little different, you know, stage of Krishna consciousness. And it doesn't make sense for us to expect them to be exactly like us. At the same time, we need to be like us because we're being trained to be devotees, and this is what's going to help us to attain Krishna consciousness. I don't know. That's...
Yeah, there's so many things in relation to this, but I hope that satisfies you, Dhanvari.
Yes, Prabhu, all of Prabhu, thank you so much for your explanation. Thanks a lot. Hari Bol, Hari
Okay,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Explanation.
Kantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.